Hello, this is Neal from South Plains College. Welcome to my Pro Tools how-to video series. This video is on how to set up Pro Tools to work in surround sound and is intended as a supplement to in-class lectures. So here are a few of the things that we're going to be covering in the video: I/O setup, subgrouping, bass management, and so forth. There are many ways to set up Pro Tools to work in surround. This is just the one that I have chosen for my students for this project. Again, during the course of the video, you will see my keystrokes displayed at the bottom of the screen, and here is a key to the guide for the symbols that you will see. You can use Shift to select tracks in a range. You can use the command to take tracks in and out of a selection, or on its own to select non-contiguous tracks, or you can use the Option key to select all or deselect all. Okay, first a quick little demonstration of the selection techniques. I can click and Shift click to select all tracks in between, and I can use Command on a Mac and select or deselect tracks from my selection. If I hold down Option, I will either select all or deselect all. I can use Command again to select non-contiguous tracks to add to or subtract from my selection, and again Option selects all or deselects all tracks. And next, two important shortcuts for Do to All and Do to Selected. So first we need to import the surround I/O setup, and then we will need to check that some things are set properly. So let's go do that now. So we open the I/O setup and go to the Output tab, and at the bottom, the 5-1 path order we're going to set based on the control surface in that studio. So we're going to need to choose D command or the C24. So again, go into the I/O setup window, we're going to go to the Output tab and go to the bottom in the 5.1 path order, and we will choose the one that has C24 film. Okay, we need to set up our main out surround with some subpaths. So we are going to go to the I/O setup again, and making sure the main out surround is selected, we're going to create two subpaths and set the top one to 5.0 and the bottom one to mono. After creating the paths, we need to assign them. So we're going to click on left for the 5.0 and under LFE for the LFE channel. Now, if you double click the name, it'll name the subpaths. It didn't do it correctly earlier because I hadn't assigned them. So the mono didn't get named properly because I hadn't assigned the mono to the LFE channel. We'll fix that later. So we'll do a little housekeeping by getting rid of some cue paths that we do not need. We don't need to set up a headphone mix during mix down of a surround, so we'll keep the I/O setup clean. Next, we need to set up the subgroup architecture so we can route all of our mix through a aux input track, and then we'll create two subpaths to that bus that match what we did on our main out. So back in the I/O setup on the bus tab, we will create a new path, and this will be a 5.1 path, and we will name it S sub M. For now, we will uncheck the auto create subpath. We'll talk about that in class. So hit create, and we're going to move that S sub M path up to the top where it's more convenient to us. And with that path selected, we are going to create two new subpaths and do what we just did to the main out surround. Assign one to 5.0 and one to mono, and assign the pathways to LCR, LS, and LFE. We double click the name and we can see how those subpaths get named properly, and will match the main out once those get renamed as they should. We also need to go to the control meter path and set that to output main out surround 5.1 so the meters are metering properly. We also want to check that the main out surround bus is mapped to an actual output main out surround, and same for the stereo, and that our S sub M subgrouping is not mapped to an output. Now if I double click on the main out surround path, it will rename those subpaths properly. Now that we have the I/O set up, we can set up the architecture inside Pro Tools to subgroup our session. So here's what we're going to create. So let's get to it. So over the mix window, I'm going to click on my last audio track just so the new tracks get created to the right. Command Shift N, create one 5.0 aux input track and one mono aux input track, and two 5.1 master faders. Hit create. There they are over here. We'll get rid of the old main out master fader, and we will check that the new 5.1 master faders are assigned properly. Next, we'll set the input to the 5.1 aux to the S sub M 5.0 bus, and the mono to the S sub M LFE bus. And next we will check the output of those aux to make sure they are going out to the main out subpath 5.0 and main out subpath LFE. So those two subpaths to the main out path. And next we'll name those aux inputs so we stay organized. S sub M 5.0 and S sub M LFE. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to route all of our audio tracks to this S sub M 5.0 aux input track. And this will allow us to kind of experiment with where we want to place things in the spectrum. So we might want to try the drums up front and guitars to the left and keyboards to the right or whatever it might be. Okay, so we're going to select all of our tracks by clicking Shift clicking. We're going to hold down Option Shift, go to one of the outputs, and we're going to go to Bus and find S sub M 5.0. This routes all of our tracks to that 5.0, and we see the surround panner appear on all of our tracks. Now all of the tracks are passing through this aux input track. Next, we're going to set up the bass management, and since our session is a music mix only and not a movie mix, we're going to set up the sub to emulate what happens in the user's receiver and how it creates the sub channel from the satellite speakers. So we're going to create a send to bus S sub M LFE, and that will take any of the signal coming through this 5.0 and route it through the LFE channel. So since we have these 5 channels and we're going to send it to one channel, we need to lower this fader on this send so we don't clip. So we'll need to monitor that later and to make sure we're not clipping, but all this is being sent to this aux input. And now we're going to put a 1-band EQ, choose the EQ3 1-band, and we're going to set it to a low pass filter and set that frequency to 80 Hertz, which is what the satellites are set to. So the satellites roll off below 80 Hertz, and this will roll off and only allow frequencies below 80 Hertz to be sent to the LFE. So regarding panning, I'm going to follow the instructions, and we're going to push things out to the extremes. So we want to limit the number of tracks that have access to more than 2 or 3 outputs or speakers. So starting with the drums, I'm going to mix the drums in drummer perspective. They're going to be up front. So I'm going to imagine the listener standing in front of the drum kit. So I'm going to start by panning Tom 1 to the right, Tom 2 a little bit to the left of center, and Tom 3 a little further left of center. And again, drummer perspective, so the hi-hat is going to go to the right of the Tom 1. And then the overheads, we'll pan those out to the left and right, respectively. So we'll continue this process, and I will magically jump into the future and to the lead vocal double, and I'll pan it to the right, and then I will pan the background vocals to the surrounds. Now take your time with this process. You'll want to stop, play, listen to where things are, make choices, make some changes, whatever.